Alrighty, a couple of days ago, we started talking about this Dynasty mock draft that I've been hosting with 16 teams that'll eventually get through 400 players. We're still in the process of finishing up this draft, but I wanted to, for a second time, be able to talk about the results thus far. So we talked about the first 5 rounds in the first episode, and we'll go through starting with round 6 today, and we'll see how far we get. But the point here is to take a look at where a bunch of different dynasty and general fantasy analysts are taking some of these players in dynasty leagues and dynasty startups, or where they would if they were starting a league today. We did run into, I think, some auto drafts in the later rounds, so we'll probably just kind of hit on a couple players that went, not necessarily every single pick, because some of them were auto drafts that don't really give us the best data, but we'll be able to take a look at some other really nice values. So I'm going to bring up that board, and then we will be able to talk about it. All right, we've got the picks that have been made up on the board. I'm covering a few of them if you're watching this, just like 9 picks or so, but they're going to be episode 3 picks that we talk about probably. So no worries, we're not interrupting anything. So we're going to start here with round 6. So this would be pick 81 that we'll be talking about here, and that is Zach Edey. And then we'll go with next Mikal Bridges, Reed Sheppard, both Reed Sheppard and Zach Edey from the 2024 class. I think pretty different prospects in the sense that Zach Edey is a good bit older and was pretty good as a rookie and should be even better in year 2. I think I was lower on him earlier on, and I've slowly liked him a little bit more. I'm not quite as high as other people are. I know Jason is incredibly high on Zach Edey. You will never catch me being that high on Zach Edey, but it's definitely in a good situation for him to be pretty productive, whereas Reed Sheppard is still just a talent that we're banking on. He was really productive in college, had some really nice advanced stats that supported him as a prospect. Hopefully we'll get the opportunity to see him play a larger role at some point this year, but if not, over the next couple of years, he's just that talented and translates really well to productive fantasy basketball numbers. So that's why he's going that early, despite not doing much in year 1. After that, we have Mark Williams, Shaden Sharp, Con Knipple, who's another rookie, and then LeBron James with pick 87. And if you check out our partners at FanDuel, the NBA schedule got released yesterday, and they already have, or I guess they already had, odds for opening night. Now, I don't believe they have odds for every single game at this point, but we will get the opportunity to see LeBron James versus Steph Curry on opening night, which is pretty cool. I think, a couple of years ago when they were doing, as many Lakers Warriors matchups as they could on national TV, it was kind of like, okay, guys, like these teams are both pretty average. Like, obviously you're getting to see Steph and LeBron, but it was almost too much made out of it for me. But now it's like, okay, LeBron is 40, turning 41 this year, and Steph's, 37 or whatever he is. So how many more times are we going to get to see this matchup? I think it's good for them to highlight it as much as possible at this point. Now, a couple of years ago, I felt differently. Now, give me the matchup. We'll also get to see LeBron on Christmas Day against the Rockets. So that'll be LeBron versus KD. It'll be the rest of Houston's young core against the Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves, a bunch of other players. It'd be a really fun matchup that day. And FanDuel already has odds for both those games, and the Lakers are favored in both. So make sure to check out our partners at sportsbook.fanduel.com. So we'll get back to the draft here. After LeBron at pick 87, I went with Devin Vassell, who I'm very high on, and that would have been pick 88. And I have him a good bit higher at 64, and I know I'm one of the higher dynasty analysts on Devin Vassell, and I will admit that the situation is getting less and less favorable, but I still believe in the talent as him on as far as his scoring ability, his ability to hit threes. I think he's an underrated passer / playmaker, has been able to get defensive stats in the past. I don't think it's at the point now where he's an untradeable piece. I think that there's definitely an opportunity for that to happen, which I don't think would be the worst thing for his career. It could be nice for him to go to a different team and get the opportunity to have the ball in his hands even more, or just way more than he will this upcoming season. But we'll see. Maybe having this team be fully healthy, things will go well for him and he'll have an improved season. Or maybe not. We'll see. Next, Bilal Coulibaly. It's a nice pick there. Then we have Joel Embiid, which I think is a pretty interesting pick there from Jason. That'd be pick 90. I have him ranked 97, I believe. 97, yes. So a little bit earlier than I would have taken him, but it is pretty interesting to see Joel Embiid fall this far. If Jason had taken him there, I don't know how quickly he would have gone after that. And I don't know how early he would go if this was a money on the line league, because it's one thing to value a player as a top 100 player versus do you really want to spend a top 100 pick on him? I think Embiid is worth it despite the injury question marks, but everyone could have a different opinion on that. Next, we have Naz Reid, Jaden McDaniels, DeJounte Murray, who's going to miss a good bit of time this upcoming season, at least probably the first couple months, if not more. But he's obviously a really talented, productive fantasy player, especially in category leagues. Then we have Brandon Ingram, Brandon Pajemski, and then we wrap up pick 96, wraps up round 6 with Jabari Smith Jr. After that, we have Benedict Mathurin to kick off round 7, and Yegor Dioman. This would be pick 98, Nick Claxton, Fred VanVleet. A couple more rookies going this round with Kamen Malawach, Trey Johnson, Jared McCain, Julius Randle, and then I went with Collin Murray-Boyles. This would be pick 105, and I have Collin Murray-Boyles at 85, so I was really happy about that value to get him there. Next pick there is Andrew Nembhard, who I think will probably not get drafted early enough in redraft leagues. I think he's going to be in for a big season, and I think he's a really talented player. But how much does that move the needle in dynasty leagues? I mean, you'll probably get at least one season of a nice bump with Tyrese Halliburton out, but then do things just go back to normal, or does that season help him be more productive even with Tyrese Halliburton back? Do they go to him more if he has this monster season that I'm expecting? So seeing him go just outside the top 100, I have him ranked 108. And what did I say? He went 106. So right around the same range that I have him ranked. Pretty interesting. Wouldn't be shocked if he's a good bit higher even by midseason. Next, we have Cam Johnson, Zachary Risache, last year's number 1 overall pick, then Malik Monk, Jakob Poeltl, Christian Brown, and Cam Thomas wrapping up round 7, which is pick 112. Next, we have, after that, we'll spend a little bit more time actually talking about that round. So we talked about Andrew Nembhard. Trey Johnson, I think we've talked about him a handful of times, should be in for a high-scoring rookie season in Washington. Yegor Dioman is a player that I'm not super, super high on in dynasty leagues, but I think he's going to be one of the better rookies in year 1. I was in Josh Lloyd's redraft, just basic 9-cat mock draft last night, and I took Yegor Dioman in the second to last round as just a late round flyer, and I think the upside there for him to potentially be a better shooter than he was in college, because he showed that a little bit in summer league, and then also have the ball in his hands more, be able to get the assists we saw in college. I think it's a recipe for him to be pretty good, though inefficient, probably as a rookie. And I'm not super optimistic about his development past that, but he should be productive, at least in year 1. Benedict Mathurin also started off this round. That was pick 97. I think just like Andrew Nembhard, he should be in for a big season this upcoming year. Rick Carlisle said that he's going to be the starter. But at the same time, he's a good scorer and I think a pretty good rebounder for a guard or wing, whatever you want to call him. But I'm not super optimistic about him just magically developing into doing more. So I would definitely, if I had to choose between, I guess, Andrew Nembhard and Benedict Mathurin, I'd rather have Nembhard in Dynasty. And I'm pretty sure, let me double check this. Do my Dynasty rankings? Yeah, my Dynasty rankings do line up with that. I have Mathurin at 160, which is probably a bit low now that I'm looking at it, especially seeing him go top 100 here. All right, we'll move on to round 8 here with Bub Carrington starting things off. Interesting, pretty solid rookie year in Washington. Then we have Toumani Camara, who is one of the better defenders in the league and has been productive for stretches in dynasty leagues and in category leagues. Let's pull up his numbers from last year. Average 11.3 points, 5.8 rebounds, 2.2 assists, 1.5 steals, 1.7 threes. This is just his second year in the league. The field goal percentage is meh. The free throw percentage is meh. But the defensive production plus decent rebounds and threes gives him some nice value there for category leagues. Then we have Keegan Murray, who I still think is a good player, but I'm not super optimistic about him. And the situation in Sacramento isn't ideal for him because, yeah, Zach LaVine's going to need the ball, and then Domantas Sabonis is going to need the ball. DeMar DeRozan's going to need the ball. Dennis Schroeder's there now. Malik Monk is still there. How many of those players are we confident are going to be doing their best to get Keegan Murray the ball? I think that Keegan Murray just falls on the back burner even more so. And I think you're probably going to be playing the waiting game for something to happen in Sacramento for the now 25-year-old player entering his fourth season to really be able to be productive. I mean, he had some decent games late last year after the trade or trading away De'Aaron Fox and having the roster looks the way it does, but I don't know. We'll see how that pans out, but I'm not super optimistic about him in the short term, which is fine because this is a dynasty draft. And we have Miles Bridges, Derek Queen next, so we'll see how that goes in New Orleans in year one because Summer League wasn't great. There was definitely flashes, but not great. Michael Porter Jr., who should be in for a big season as one of the better scorers in Brooklyn, but we'll see. In a really good class, we often see some of these players, a really good draft class upcoming. Some of these players don't play as many games. They tend to have injuries, and Michael Porter Jr. doesn't exactly have the best history of being healthy. So I don't think that the Nets will be motivated to have him play through too many injuries. Young Hansen is the next pick, and that is, what is that, pick 119? Then we have Cason Wallace, who was my pick, and that would be pick 120. I'm pretty high on Cason Wallace. I really liked him coming out of Kentucky in 2023, and then went to OKC, and I was like, okay, I don't know how much I like this situation. Like, is he going to start? How much is he going to have the ball in his hands if he does start? That's kind of what we're looking at now, but he was starting a good bit of last season. Really good defender, can shoot the ball. I think he hasn't needed to play make a ton, but I think if he needs to be in that, like, I guess, higher usage role, then I think the playmaking can be there. I think this is more banking on the talent than banking on the situation, which is what, generally, especially in some of the earlier rounds of a dynasty league, if I'm looking for a long-term piece, then yeah, I'm looking to maybe get a player that I think is better than what he's producing to get him at somewhat of a value. So getting him at 120, and he's a guy I have just inside the top 100 at 99. Very happy with. Then we have Jimmy Butler, Anthony Simons, who forgot who reported it, but one of the recent reports was that Peyton Pritchard is going to be starting over him, which would be pretty interesting, I think. I don't know for sure that I agree with that. I think if Boston is dead set on not keeping Anthony Simons around, then isn't this going to kind of diminish his trade value? But if they do want to keep him around, is that going to be the best thing for him? Maybe, now that I'm talking myself into it, maybe they do want to keep him around and have him be in a six-man role like the 2026-2027 season. So having him get used to that, but he's done that already in his career. So I don't know. And we'll see. That could just be a report, may not even happen. But if it does, Peyton Pritchard, who went in the next round, we'll talk about here in a second, his value would definitely go through the roof. All right. So after Simons, we have Kyle Filipowski, who had the really nice summer league, and then Yves Missi, Kawhi Leonard, Jonathan Kuminga, Thomas Sorber, and then John Collins to wrap up round 8, which would be pick 128 for John Collins. Sorber is a player that I was very high on pre-draft. Obviously, didn't get to see him during Summer League. Hopefully, when we do get to see him this year, though I expect it to be pretty minimal. Like he doesn't, I just don't expect him to play all that much in year one on OKC unless they're blowing teams out, probably getting more time in the G League. But I think this is more of a long-term play. So don't go take him in your redraft league. Kawhi Leonard, interesting year because obviously there aren't too many players that are more productive than him when he's on the floor and when he's healthy. But those are such big question marks, and he is older at this point. So makes sense that he went in round 8. All right, kicking off round 9 with Jeremiah Fears, who's another player that I've really liked, but definitely another long-term project. Not a guy that I'm expecting too much from in year 1, year 2, maybe even year 3. We've seen a lot of frustration with Scoot Henderson, but I think that, we've talked about it with Matt Lawson a bunch. Yes, I think it's justified to bump him down the rankings, but I'm still a Scoot Henderson believer. And I think Jeremiah Fears having our expectations tempered a little bit, more so than we did with Scoot, who we had as like a top 25 Dynasty player early on, is very fair to Jeremiah Fears. Then we have Rudy Gobert, DeMar DeRozan, Rob Dillingham, who probably would have went a good bit earlier at this point last year because he didn't get to play all that much during his rookie year, and some of the flashes were good. Some of them were Don't know how much that's going to change in year 2, but definitely a super, super talented guard. And we can always look at Kentucky guard theory. All these Kentucky guards end up being studs for the most part. And that's obviously not the most sound logic to base it off of, but I think he's a really talented player and that he's a guy that we were just definitely going to have to be patient with. Next is Isaiah Collier, who was more productive in his rookie year, but I think the upside of Rob Dillingham is much higher than the upside of Isaiah Collier, though Collier might be more productive this upcoming season. We have Josh Hart, PJ Washington, Peyton Pritchard going pick 136. He is a player that I have ranked 107, so that was a nice value there. I believe based on my next pick being Ron Holland and me having Ron Holland at 112, I would have taken Peyton Pritchard if he was there. So thanks for sniping me. But I like Ron Holland. I think he's got the defensive ability, the athleticism. The shot looked better in Summer League, I think. I'm not expecting him to become some elite three-point shooter, but any improvement there will help. And I think that maybe he's not set up to have the biggest year this upcoming season in Detroit, but maybe be a little bit better, a little bit more productive, see a little bit of a larger role. And then eventually I think he has the potential to be a true fantasy stud. After that, we have Herb Jones, RJ Barrett, Jeremy Sohan, DeAndre Ayton, Nikola Vucevic, Bobby Portis, and Daniel Gafford. Got to be honest, aside from Herb Jones, it's a lot of not my favorite, just kind of boring, snoozy picks. I'm not saying that they're bad picks because they're not, but they're just not my favorite and not players that I want to spend a ton of time talking about. All right, kicking off round 10, we have Grady Dick and then Davion Mitchell, Paul George, who fell more than pretty much any other veteran. This would be pick 147 for Paul George. We have rookie Kasper Siakachonis, a couple exciting young picks in a row with Keyshawn George, Keontae George, Cam Whitmore, and then I went with Ryan Dunn, who I've been very high on since before he was drafted. And this would be pick, what is this? 152 for me. I have Ryan Dunn at 137, so nice value per my own rankings. We have rookie Nick Clifford, then Mitch Robinson, Scottie Pippen Jr., CJ McCollum, Taylor Hendricks, who I'm also very high on. Who, now that I'm looking at it, I should have taken before I took Ryan Dunn, because I have Taylor Hendricks ranked at 109 and Ryan Dunn ranked at 137. So nice job, Noah. Bad pick. Then after Hendricks, we have Norm Powell, who should be in for another solid season with the Heat. Then we have Cedric Coward, who Memphis drafted at 11. And then Jalen Wells, Colin Sexton to wrap up round 10, and then Jalen Wells to kick off round 11. Coward before Wells. I think Wells is going to be obviously playing a good bit more this year, but Coward is definitely the better fantasy prospect and could be much better, should be a much better long-term play, assuming everything pans out for him, because we only got to see him play 6 games at Washington State last year, and we didn't get to see him in Summer League. So a lot of this is based on workouts and intel and a limited sample size in lower competition. So the idea is fantastic, fantasy superstar upside, but will it pan out? We'll see. So after Jalen Wells kicks off round 11, we have Damian Lillard, Santi Aldama, Nolan Traore, and Rasheer Fleming, 2 rookies back-to-back. Fleming's guy I have been very high on. Then we have Dennis Schroeder, and then we have Ty Jerome, and this is pick 7 of round 11, so pick 167. And our partners at FanDuel currently have him 6th in 6th man of the year preseason odds. So what does that mean? It means he's probably going to be in a reserve role, which isn't anything that we didn't expect. And the expectation here is that he is going to be the primary reserve. And we just saw him, obviously, last season do that for Cleveland. Scottie Pippen Jr. went earlier than him in this draft by about a round. But I guess the expectation here, based off betting odds, is that Jerome is actually going to see the minutes first or be more productive off the bench. We'll see if that ends up happening. And that doesn't necessarily mean that Scottie Pippen Jr. isn't the better long-term play. But if we're also looking at the 6th man of the year odds, Anthony Simons is 5th in 6th man of the year odds, and Peyton Pritchard is Simons is 5th, Pritchard is 7th. So that tells us that, yeah, Simons probably is more likely to be the 6th man this year. But I also expect that once that becomes official, that they're no longer going to be splitting odds. So if you feel really confident in that report that Simons is going to be the 6th man, and you think that that's what's going to happen, then I think that plus 1,200 odds is pretty good for a player that, if right now today Joe Mazzulla came out and said, yep, Simons is coming off the bench, Peyton Pritchard is going to start, those odds would skyrocket. So it's just an interesting thing to check out at sportsbook.fanduel.com. After Ty Jerome, we have Draymond Green, and then I went with Jarace Walker, who I have at 145. So getting him at 169 is something I'm definitely okay with. And Keon Ellis, I went right after I got Jarace Walker, then Aaron Nesmith. So both Nesmith and Walker should see increased roles this year as Indiana tries to figure things out, even though they're not playing the same positions as Tyrese Halliburton or Miles Turner. Indirectly, more minutes or at least more time on the ball for both of them. Rookie defensive stud Carter Bryant went next. Then Dante DiVincenzo, Walter Clayton Jr., Alex Caruso, and then Quentin Grimes at pick 176. Then we start off round 12 with Johan Berenger, Aaron Gordon, Nikola Jovic, Noah Essengay, Tijan Salon, Andrew Wiggins, Anthony Black, Peyton Watson, who was my pick, who I don't love Peyton Watson, but I think the upside there is still very high. Maybe things work out really well playing next to Jokic, but we just need him to actually be doing that. And with Aaron Gordon still productive, haven't really got to see that too much yet, but we're still keeping our fingers crossed, and we still know the talent and the upside is there. Then we had Ryan Kalkbrenner, who should be one of the more productive rookies in year one. It does depend on role, but he doesn't have too much competition for minutes at center. Definitely a chance that he starts. After that was Bradley Beal, AJ Mitchell, Day'Ron Sharpe, Drew Holiday, Tobias Harris, Devin Carter, and Patrick Williams to wrap up round 12. We'll go through one more round just to talk about things. Isaiah Jackson, who could start at center for Indiana and is definitely a really talented piece. We have Gigi Jackson, Wendell Carter Jr., who will start at center for Orlando. It's not even a question. Noah Clowney, Buddy Hield, Iosumu, D'Angelo Russell, Danny Wolf, and then I went with Vince Williams Jr. I'm always going to believe in Vince Williams Jr. I know that Jalen Wells is in that starting role, but I think that when Vince Williams is healthy, he is a really good defender, can shoot the ball, can play make a little bit. I think he's dynamic enough to eventually, if not start, play a significant role for Memphis, maybe end up elsewhere and be able to be more productive. I'm a fan. Then we have Aaron Wiggins, who saved basketball. We have Miles McBride, Terrence Shannon Jr., DeAndre Hunter, who is preseason first in 6 Man of the Year odds per our partners at FanDuel. Goga Bitadze, Kevin Porter Jr., who should see an increased role in Milwaukee this year and could have a breakout season. And then Jaime Jaquez Jr. So that is, what is that? 192 picks? Let me do math to double check that. 208 picks. We got through even more than I thought. So that is 208 players out of a Dynasty mock that will go through 400 players. And I know I said I was going to try and do this in 3 episodes. I don't think there's a need to go through 4 because I think we can speed through the last half of this draft by just hitting the highlights instead of hitting every single pick. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Young Man Squad Fantasy Basketball Podcast, which is part of the Old Man Squad Sports Network and part of Believe Network and brought to you by FanDuel. If there's anything specific you want me to talk about for Dynasty leagues, it could even be redraft leagues at this point, but prioritizing Dynasty League content, definitely comment or tweet at me. If you have old drafts or whatever you want me to take a look at, please do. Please send those my way, and I will analyze them. But that's going to do it for this episode, and I will see you guys next week.